He was branded a predator and convicted by the internet. His career destroyed overnight. Yet today, the FBI dropped a bombshell no one saw coming. Celeste Rivas died of an overdose, not murder. A twist that clears David, but raises a darker question. If David wasn't guilty, why did the world believe he was? The twist first. FBI and Autopsy. The cameras clicked, the microphones buzzed, and the world leaned forward as the FBI chief finally stepped to the podium. After weeks of speculation, headlines screaming predator, and fans rushing to condemn him, the words landed with a weight that nobody expected. After careful review of the evidence, there are no criminal charges against David Anthony Burke, known professionally as David. At this time, we confirm he is not a suspect, nor has any criminal record linked to this case. The announcement reverberated across social media, halting the endless cycle of accusations that had painted the 20-year-old singer as both a killer and a monster. For weeks, his name had been synonymous with scandal. The viral hashtags, the resurfaced screenshots, the unreleased songs dissected line by line. But suddenly, the nation was confronted with a reality far less sensational and far more tragic. Celeste Rivas, the 15-year-old whose body had been discovered in his Tesla, had died of an overdose. The autopsy had spoken, and it was final. When the Los Angeles County Medical Examiner released the findings, they confirmed what many online sleuths had refused to consider. The cause of death was not strangulation, stabbing, or any deliberate act of violence. It was a fatal overdose. The toxicology report revealed a lethal cocktail of opioids and depressants in her bloodstream, the kind of combination all too common in the epidemic, tearing through America's youth. Forensic notes added that while her body was found severely decomposed and partially dismembered, there was no conclusive evidence that David himself had inflicted those injuries. Some investigators even suggested the dismemberment may have occurred after death, perhaps by someone trying to conceal what had really happened rather than as part of the crime itself. This was not the revelation the internet was prepared for. To millions of fans and just as many detractors, David had already been tried and convicted in the court of public opinion. But now the medical science told a different story, one of addiction, overdose, and tragic youth rather than a celebrity-fueled homicide. The FBI's clarification came as the dust of outrage was still thick. People wanted to know why it had taken so long for authorities to make such a definitive statement. The Bureau explained that the frenzy of viral leaks and speculation had demanded careful cross-checking. They had to comb through mountains of circumstantial evidence. The Discord chats tying his name to Celeste, the unreleased song that seemed like a confession, even the unsettling tattoo coincidences between the singer and the victim. But despite the storm of suspicion, hard evidence simply wasn't there. The Tesla was his, yes, but ownership of a car didn't equal guilt. At the estimated time of death, he had been on tour, and the digital record confirmed his absence. By the time federal authorities stepped in, the LAPD had already been buried under pressure to name him a suspect. Online sleuths were dissecting every lyric, every photo, every interview he had ever given. But the FBI's analysis confirmed there was no criminal record, no charges, and no official suspect classification. What legal analysts had warned turned out to be true. Suspiciones not proof. Yet the FBI's words didn't silence everyone. The internet had built a narrative too tantalizing to abandon overnight. Clips still circulated of the Tesla being towed, of neighbors whispering about the foul smell, of a teacher recounting Celeste's troubled past and her supposed encounters with the rising artist. One viral broadcast captured the speculation best. That imagery of a teenage girl missing for over a year, discovered lifeless in the trunk of a celebrity's car, was too haunting to let go of. Even when science provided clarity, the whispers of grooming and exploitation kept spiraling. The reason this case gripped the nation was not only the tragedy of a young life cut short, but also the uncanny web of connections linking her to the singer. Celeste's mother revealed her daughter bore a small tattoo on her finger etched into the skin. Photos of David later surfaced showing him with the same design on the exact same finger. Around the same time, an unreleased track leaked online, a song titled Celeste. Its lyrics spoke of obsession, secrecy, and police cars with lines like, "Nobody ever caught me," which fans rushed to interpret as a hidden confession. Media outlets quickly picked it up, adding fuel to the fire. Meanwhile, screenshots of old Discord conversations re-emerged, allegedly showing him asking about Celeste by name, joking with minors, and chatting late at night. In an online climate already sensitive to stories of celebrity grooming, these images were damning, even if unverified. Coverage linked the chats directly to his server, and the narrative of a predator began to stick. By the time the autopsy revealed overdose, the damage had already spilled far beyond his reputation. His tour dates were cancelled. Brands that once courted him with lucrative contracts quickly cut ties. Hollister, Crocs, and even music collaborators quietly distanced themselves. Uchis announced she would not release their joint track. And perhaps most telling of all, fans and commentators stopped calling it the David scandal. Instead, online threads and headlines framed it as the Celeste Hernandez case, ensuring that her name, not his, carried the history forward. Global coverage captured this shift. In some sense, this was a victory for Celeste, ensuring her memory wasn't overshadowed by the fame of the man linked to her death. But for David, it was catastrophic. Even in innocence, his identity had been fused to hers forever. The FBI chief, closing the press conference, cautioned against the perils of viral speculation. This case illustrates why due process exists. Internet trials are not justice. The words were clear, but like so much else in this case, they struggled to gain traction. On forums like Reddit, threads continued to spiral, counting alleged victims, dissecting his every lyric, and even dragging his fashion choices into the narrative. Some discussions cataloged him as a serial predator. Despite the FBI's findings, what mattered most was not the nuance of forensic science, but the irresistible pull of a story already cemented. A young star, a dead girl, and the suggestion of forbidden love. It didn't matter that the autopsy told a different tale, the emotional gravity was too strong. And so this story begins with what should have been its ending. The FBI had cleared David. The autopsy had confirmed overdose. The legal system said he was innocent. Yet the saga was far from over. Because even if the law absolved him, the internet had no intention of letting him go. The question now loomed larger than ever. How did we get here? How did whispers and Discord chats become national headlines? How did an unreleased song morph into evidence in a virtual courtroom? And why did the world for weeks believe a young artist was guilty of murder? To find out, we need to rewind to the allegations, the leaked screenshots, and the viral fury that turned a family's grief into one of the most sensationalized scandals of the decade. Evidence, allegations, and internet trial. The autopsy might have spoken, and the FBI might have cleared his name, but rewind the clock just a few weeks, and the picture of David was very different. At that time, he wasn't being spoken about as a victim of internet speculation or as a young star caught in a tragedy he couldn't control. Instead, he was the villain at the center of a story that spread faster than any song he had ever released. It began with a shocking discovery in Los Angeles. But it spiraled into something much bigger, the perfect storm of internet culture, celebrity scandal, and a society primed to suspect the worst. It all started with screenshots. Not just one or two isolated posts, but a flood of them posted across X, formerly Twitter, TikTok, and Reddit. In the hours after Celeste's body was identified, accounts began dropping what they claimed were direct messages between David and underage girls. Many of the conversations seemed ordinary at first. The kind of casual banter you'd expect between a rising musician and fans who admired him. But a darker undercurrent emerged. Some of the messages allegedly showed him acknowledging their age and continuing to chat in suggestive tones. Anyway, others included references to Celeste herself, almost as if her presence had long been orbiting his online persona. What made these leaks so potent was the timing. The body was barely cold, and already the internet had what looked like proof of guilt. Screenshots like these didn't just add to the story, they rewrote it. Suddenly, the narrative wasn't just that a missing girl had been found in his car, but that this girl had been part of an inappropriate relationship with him all along. The possibility of grooming, the hints of exploitation, and the whispers of an obsession grew louder and louder until they drowned out everything else, and the public didn't wait for confirmation. They took the screenshots as gospel. The resurfacing of his unreleased track titled Celeste only poured gasoline on the fire, long buried in obscure corners of fan forums. The song suddenly reappeared online, complete with lyrics that seemed to sketch a chilling portrait of secrecy and obsession. Phrases about nobody ever caught me. Mentions of tattoos and imagery of hiding away from the world were ripped from their musical context and paraded as confessions. Outlets like the New York Post ran stories about the song's existence, ensuring that what had once been a little heard demo became part of the trial by internet evidence file. In a culture trained to decode lyrics as autobiographical, listeners treated the track as nothing less than an admission of guilt. Adding to the eerie coincidences was the tattoo. Celeste's mother revealed that her daughter had gotten a SH tattoo on her finger, a simple design that bore an uncanny resemblance to one David himself sported. Within hours, side-by-side images circulated on X, framed with captions like, "What more proof do you need?" Coverage linked this eerie similarity directly to the scandal. The imagery was irresistible, a secret shared in ink, a bond hinted at impermanence, and in the echo chamber of social media, it didn't matter if tattoos like these were relatively common. It only mattered that this one could be tied to a girl now found dead. Then came the Discord logs. Forums lit up with what users claimed were archived conversations from as far back as 2023, showing David engaging with multiple underage fans. In one log, he allegedly responded to a girl identifying herself as 14 by continuing the conversation without hesitation. Another conversation supposedly included Celeste's name. The Economic Times covered the resurfacing of these Discord chats, giving them a veneer of credibility, even as questions lingered about authenticity. But in the court of public opinion, those questions hardly mattered. The logs were treated as evidence. Within days, hashtags like #Justice for Celeste and #DavidExposed trended worldwide. Every corner of the internet seemed to play host to amateur detectives dissecting his past. TikTok creators made multi-part series linking lyrics, screenshots, and even photos of him at events to Celeste. On Reddit, threads cataloged alleged victims, some claiming their own conversations with him had been inappropriate. Posts on our hip-hop heads tallied supposed connections and victims, turning the discussion into a crowdsourced case file. It wasn't just that people believed the story. It was that they believed they were uncovering it themselves. The media, for their part, wasn't far behind. Traditional outlets picked up on the frenzy, sometimes responsibly, sometimes not. NBC News confirmed the horrifying basics that Celeste's body had indeed been identified in his impounded Tesla. But tabloids like The Sun and Daily Mail went further, fusing fact and speculation until the line between reporting and rumor was nearly invisible. By the time major platforms like People and Variety ran headlines about the police searching his Los Angeles home, the impression that he was guilty had already set like concrete. One video clip that went viral captured just how deeply this impression spread. Moments like this clip weren't just coverage, they were performance. They dramatized the story, packaging speculation as narrative, and that made it irresistible. What made this moment feel unstoppable was the emotional current driving it. Stories of grooming and abuse, particularly in the entertainment industry, carry a weight that factual clarifications rarely undo. The public had seen this pattern before. Young girls, powerful men, secrecy, and then a breaking point. It didn't matter that David had only just turned 20. To the internet, he was another case study in a cycle they already recognized. And when narratives fit familiar molds, they spread without friction. For David himself, the fallout was immediate and brutal. His team canceled shows one after another, sometimes without explanation, sometimes with vague references to ongoing investigations. Fans who had once filled his comments with adoration, flooded his Instagram with disgust, disbelief, and demands for answers. Brand partnerships vanished. Companies that had once plastered his face on billboards, scrubbed him from their websites overnight. Hollister and Crocs, two of his most visible sponsors, quietly cut ties. And perhaps most symbolic of all, Kay Uchis publicly announced she would no longer release their collaboration, sending a message that even among peers, association with him had become toxic. Another viral clip surfaced showing the cultural backlash in real time. In the music world, silence can sometimes be a shield. But in this case, David's lack of a public statement only fueled speculation. Fans speculated that he was hiding. Critics claimed it was proof of guilt. Each day, without a response became another layer of suspicion. Where was he? Why wouldn't he speak? Why wouldn't he deny? By saying nothing, he let others fill the silence with their own conclusions, and none of those conclusions favored him. The most devastating aspect of this wave wasn't just the professional losses, but the way it redefined his entire identity. He wasn't the kid who blew up on TikTok anymore or the singer behind Romantic Homicide. He was the name attached to Celeste Rivas, the man whose unreleased track bore her name, the artist with the matching tattoo, the face at the center of screenshots, threads, and exposes. Even as authorities withheld judgment, the internet had no such patience. In its eyes, he was already convicted. That conviction carried a strange kind of collective thrill. In a fractured media landscape, stories like these provide rare moments of unity. Strangers debated evidence, shared theories, and pushed hashtags, all participating in the same unfolding drama. For some, it was righteous fury. For others, it was entertainment. But for David, it was devastation. And yet, what made this story so intoxicating was not just the evidence, but the way it appeared to connect in an almost cinematic way. A body in the car, a song with her name, a tattoo that matched, Discord chats that confirmed suspicion. Each piece felt like a puzzle fitting together too perfectly to be coincidence. It didn't matter whether the pieces were authentic or whether they told the whole story. It only mattered that they fit the narrative people wanted to believe. By the time the FBI stepped in with their clarification and the medical examiner released the autopsy report, the internet had already moved to sentencing. For many, the only question was how long he would spend in prison, not whether he would go at all. And so, when the official word arrived that there would be no charges, it didn't feel like exoneration. It felt like betrayal. Felt like a system protecting yet another celebrity, another man accused of the unforgivable. The science said one thing. The emotion said another. The damage was irreversible. Even if innocence had been proven beyond doubt, the story had already been written, and it had already been consumed. In the eyes of many, he would forever be tied to Celeste. Not as an innocent bystander, but as the ghost hovering at the edges of her tragedy. His career, his reputation, his future, all of it was reshaped in the glare of this internet trial. And so, as the world grappled with the contradiction, innocence in law, guilt, and culture, a question hung heavy: was there ever any chance for him to escape this? Could an artist recover from being at the center of a storm so powerful, even when the facts said otherwise? The answer lies in how the story began long before the FBI's podium, long before the autopsy. To understand how this scandal reached its fever pitch, you have to go back to the rise of David himself. The image he cultivated, the audience he drew, and the nightmarish twist when a missing girl's name became forever linked to his rise, shock, and discovery. Before he became the centerpiece of a scandal that shook both the music world and the internet, David was a symbol of everything the new generation of musicians aspired to be. Born in 2005, he came of age in the digital era, bypassing the traditional gatekeepers of the industry. Platforms like TikTok, Discord, and YouTube weren't just tools for him, they were his launchpad. With nothing more than a cracked iPhone, a DIY attitude, and a handful of melodies, he went viral in 2022 with Romantic Homicide, a song that poured teenage angst into a blend of alternative R&B and indie rock. Overnight, the track became a soundtrack for millions of Gen Z listeners nursing heartbreaks and daydreams. Soon after, another single, Here With Me, captured a different but equally powerful mood: longing, intimacy, and connection. That track became a staple of TikTok edits and late-night playlists. By the end of 2023, David was no longer just a kid uploading songs from his bedroom. He was a recognized artist, courted by brands, collaborating with bigger names, and building a persona that seemed untouchable. He wasn't the typical celebrity, awkward, slightly introverted, with a streak of authenticity that fans cherished. He was theirs, a star who had risen from their own platforms, and his success felt communal. But as 2024 bled into 2025, the story of David began to shift. It didn't happen with a single moment, but through whispers, screenshots, and side-eye glances at behaviors that no longer seemed so innocent. His Discord server, once a playground for fans to interact with him directly, became the centerpiece of rumors. Allegations surfaced that some of the girls he interacted with were underage. And though defenders argued he was just a teenager himself when some of those chats began, the conversations carried a weight that unsettled many. Screenshots began appearing in niche forums, DMs with girls who claimed to be 14, 15, sometimes even younger. For every defender insisting context was missing, another user countered with receipts. Then came the disappearance of Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Celeste was reported missing from Riverside County in April 2024. Her family left in the unbearable limbo of uncertainty. Months passed with no answers, no leads. Posters with her face appeared in school hallways. Police reports circulated, but nothing concrete materialized. For a while, she became another statistic in California's rising tide of missing teens. The internet took fleeting notice, then moved on. Her name, however, would return in the most horrific way imaginable. On September 17, 2025, the Los Angeles Police Department impounded a Tesla registered under David's name in the Hollywood Hills. Inside, authorities discovered a body in an advanced state of decomposition. Identification wasn't immediate. The remains were too far gone. But forensic tests soon confirmed what no one was prepared to hear. It was Celeste, the teenage girl missing for over a year, had been found. Not in an abandoned building or on a remote roadside, but in the trunk of a car belonging to one of music's brightest young stars. The shockwaves were instant. News outlets raced to confirm the discovery, while neighbors described the unbearable smell that had lingered near the car. Police tape and flashing sirens turned a quiet Los Angeles street into the epicenter of a global media storm. NBC News confirmed the body's identification, while other outlets highlighted the car's connection to the singer. Within hours, social media ignited and his name began trending, not for music, but for death. One chilling clip captured the moment the discovery hit mainstream media. For fans who had idolized him, the disbelief was palpable. How could the same voice that had soundtracked their heartbreaks now be connected to something so horrific? For critics, however, the discovery wasn't just shocking. It was confirmation. All those Discord whispers, those screenshots, those unearthed lyrics suddenly snapped into focus. To them, the body wasn't a mystery. It was the missing piece that tied everything together. And then came the leaks. The unreleased track Celeste, which had floated in obscurity for months, resurfaced in the aftermath of the discovery. Its lyrics, once brushed off as cryptic or artistic, were reinterpreted as evidence. Mentions of secrecy, police cars, and nobody ever caught me, felt damning in light of what had been found. Headlines blared about the disturbing unreleased song, and platforms like the New York Post ran with the story. Suddenly, what had been an unreleased demo became a confession track. At the same time, the tattoo connection emerged. Celeste's mother described her daughter's small finger tattoo, the word SH etched into her skin. When fans circulated images of David with the exact same design on the same finger, the internet collectively gasped. To many, this was not a coincidence. It was intimacy. Proof of a hidden relationship immortalized in ink. Coverage in the Economic Times fueled this eerie connection, and once again, fact and interpretation blurred until the line all but vanished. Within days, the storm reached hurricane strength. Fans who had once championed him turned on him. His Discord server, once a fan hub, was combed through like a crime scene with users posting and reposting old conversations. Some claimed they'd spoken to him when they were underage, others dropped screenshots of flirtatious exchanges. Articles chronicled these resurfaced Discord chats, and suddenly what had once been whispers turned into headlines. One viral video laid it out in stark terms. The cultural machine went into overdrive. Reddit threads ballooned with speculation. X trended with hashtags like #JusticeForCeleste, and TikTok creators posted multi-art exposes. Each new post, each new thread became part of the growing narrative. Even before law enforcement had issued a statement, the internet had already decided he was guilty. Brands reacted quickly as they always do when controversy hits. Hollister and Crocs, which had prominently featured him in campaigns, cut ties. Kay Uchis publicly distanced herself, scrapping a collaboration that had once been hyped by fans. Festivals quietly removed his name from lineups. His once bright future dimmed almost overnight. For Celeste's family, the discovery brought a heartbreaking kind of closure. They released a statement acknowledging the identification of her body, thanking supporters, and demanding justice. Global news covered the family's grief, amplifying their pain as part of the global conversation. In the rush of speculation, it was sometimes easy to forget that this wasn't just a scandal. It was a tragedy. A 15-year-old girl had lost her life, and her family was left with unimaginable grief, but for the public, the focus remained on the spectacle. Was David guilty? Was he a predator hiding in plain sight? Or was he just another young man caught in the wrong place at the wrong time? The debate raged across platforms. But in those early days, one side's voice was louder. Guilt was assumed, innocence was ridiculed, and nuance was lost. Another viral news clip captured just how quickly assumptions hardened. By the time the FBI clarified that there would be no charges, and the autopsy revealed an overdose, the story had already metastasized. The discovery of Celeste's body had been the spark, and everything else had fanned into an inferno. The rise of David from bedroom producer to viral sensation had been rewritten. Now he was remembered less for his music and more for the scandal that consumed him. And that's where this story leaves us. With a young artist cleared in the eyes of the law but damned in the court of public opinion. With a family mourning the loss of a daughter whose name will forever be tied to whispers of grooming and tragedy. And with an internet still arguing over what to believe. David's career may yet continue. He may release new music, rebuild his reputation, and find an audience willing to forgive or forget. But the scars of this saga will not fade easily. For some, he will always be the boy who sang about homicide and ended up linked to a real one. For others, he is a cautionary tale about the dangers of jumping to conclusions in a digital age where narratives spread faster than facts. In the end, Celeste's story is the one that matters most. Her life, her disappearance, and her tragic overdose are the heart of this saga, but because of the way the story unfolded with screenshots, songs, tattoos, and a celebrity caught in the middle, it has become something larger. A cultural flashpoint, a reminder that in the internet era, guilt and innocence aren't determined only by courts and autopsies. They're determined by hashtags, by clicks, by the stories people want to tell. And that's why even after the FBI's announcement, even after the autopsy, and even after the facts have been made clear, the question still lingers. Will anyone truly believe David is innocent? Love this video? Click on the cards on your screen for more.